All right, welcome to our second episode of Big Conversations with Small Talk. I'm Alex. I'm here with Sarah and Megan again this week. We want to thank you guys for tuning in last time. I hope you guys learned a lot and had fun watching us spin wheels and talk about some really important topics for you and your family. So on this week's show, Megan's going to go through some online learning resources. Sarah's going to talk about kind of managing emotions with our kids at home and how we can do that in an effective and appropriate way. If you haven't had a chance, this is your first time watching Big Conversations with Small Talk, I'd encourage you to go back and watch the last one and then come back and watch this one. I really want to especially shout out our super, super awesome intro that we had. It was really great. From our friend Davey, who wrote an original song for us, and Megan put together a really great intro that we really all enjoyed shooting and got a kick out of, and we hope you did too. So, like the same structure as last time, we're going to go through some questions that got submitted to us. So the first one that we have is how to manage and structure time with kids when parents are already overwhelmed with the working from home and caring for children. So some of that work-life balance that I think all of us are having a hard time with. So Megan, I don't know if maybe you had some tips or some suggestions on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I'm also going to try and touch a little bit on when we start to talk about, getting back to online schooling and balancing your child's work or your child's school with your own work. And it can be really tough, but having a schedule that you're able to kind of share with each other, making a schedule for yourself and then making a schedule for your child and then being able to swap those. That way, your kids kind of have a little bit of an idea of how your day is going to look and how it's going to be structured, and vice versa too. That way, they're able to just kind of make sure that they're not interrupting you or during like any time throughout the day. And that you can also have time set aside to be able to just check in with them throughout the day, having some sort of like office hours kind of thing, maybe a half an hour during the day when you're free, that your kids can come and just check the schedule, make sure things are going good, ask any questions or things like that. And just making sure that you're still being connected throughout the day too. You don't have to be totally separate from everything else that's going on too.
Oh, that's a great suggestions. Thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
All right. So our next question is how to teach appropriate management of children's emotions related to not being able to play with friends, go outside. So a lot of, dealing with social distancing with kids who might not exactly understand what it is that we're going through now. So I know, Sarah, you'll probably touch on that a little bit more during your segment, but maybe you can give us a quick preview of sort of some things you would recommend or suggest.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's really common right now, when kids are stressed to see some new, like challenging behaviors come up that we might not be used to seeing all the time with our kids. And so I would recommend, looking out for things like increased temper tantrums or irritability, even some extra clinginess to you might be happening, or some difficulty concentrating on things. All of that might be a sign that your child is feeling extra stressed right now. So when you notice some of those things in your child, first thing I would recommend is just validating, the difficult experience that they're having right now. So saying something along the lines of, I know this must be so hard for you to not be able to see your friends right now. And just recognizing that they're having a hard time with it too, and letting them know that you're aware that they're having a hard time. And then what I would recommend is just encouraging them to do some regulating strategies. That can be something that you do together with them. And so an example of that is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding activity that we did in last week's episode. So check that out. But also things like deep breathing or some fun physical activity, like going outside and kicking a soccer ball or even doing some jumping jacks. And lastly, I would recommend practicing some of those regulating strategies before it gets to the point where your child really needs it in a moment of kind of emotional crisis or kind of an intense, emotional moment. And that just helps because then they're able to really develop the skill before they need to put it to use. So it's a little bit more effective when it's time to use it in the moment when they're really upset.
I love that suggestion because I think that's one that I use a lot of times when I'm meeting with kids in counseling and talking about using coping skills and teaching those. I will usually use the example of I think maybe I told you guys this, but I played the trombone when I was in 5th grade, and I loved it at first. It was great, but then I like very quickly lost interest, and I was like terrible at it to the point where our band teacher was like during concerts was like, just don't play, just pretend like you're like sliding the trombone. And it's like, I would never have been good under that sort of intense pressure in that moment. I wouldn't have been able to play a song if I had practiced, it would have been fine. It would have been a non-issue. But the fact that I didn't made it a lot more of a difficult situation. I couldn't do what I needed to do in the moment. And I think it's the same, like you're saying, with coping skills, Sarah. You have to practice them. So you get sort of that muscle memory built in that it's, first thing that comes to mind when you're in those stressful and difficult situations. So I love that suggestion. I think it's great.
Thanks.